frankly, I think that Christians should go to church and re-engage with their faith a lot. I think it's really, really important for the country. More people need to go to church. They need to re-engage with the New Testament, and I'm not a big fan of the...
George Janko sat down with Ben Shapiro, and the conversation around Jesus came up. Now, you guys have been following. George Janko has been crushing it on his podcast. Shout out to George Janko. Thank you, George Janko, for having me on. That was great. You've been having some great conversations. I've said this to you privately. I want to celebrate you publicly, and congratulations on getting married. Ben Shapiro, as some of you guys know, is not a Christian, but he has a lot of close Christian friends, and he has a lot of Christian coworkers, partners, and people have been sharing Jesus with him, bringing up Jesus with him in interesting ways. Recently, Andrew Clavin, is that his name? Clavin went on Pints with Aquinas. They had this conversation about Ben needing Jesus, even though he may live like a Christian or whatever the argument was. And Pints pressed him about the need for Jesus, specifically Ben's need of Jesus. And this is George Janko bringing up Jesus to Ben Shapiro. I'm all for it. Let's check it out.
That's always a bad move.
I want to talk about that because, like, you're intellectually, bro, you're so fast at like processing what you need to say next, and sharing the same field that you're in now. I'm like a baby, and so now I'm just asking questions because I want to learn from you, so I don't make the same mistakes. And
you know, Ben Shapiro's scarred when he hears that "just asking questions" line. He's like, "Oh goodness."
And I've learned that when I get emotional, I drill, and it's not from a good place; it's from a fear place. What is a good learning curve that got you away from being emotional, so that way? Because what we want to do is we don't want to shatter our opponents, but more convince them to come on our playing side of the field, because we truly have faith that our side is the correct way. And how I kind of go about these things is how Jesus Christ did it, and it was very, give them the other cheek, forgive them, and through this, they'll see your fruits and want to come over here.
I like it. You know how I do this, Mr. Ben Shapiro? Mr. I don't believe in Jesus? I look at the example of Jesus. Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Extend compassion and bring them over. Wow. I like this. Now Ben's no dummy. Ben has a response for this.
Jesus wasn't above overturning tables and being pretty harsh when he needed to be.
You know what? I've noticed that Jewish people always bring up that. This is one time he was very forgiving. Forgive him.
I think that I mean, I'm not going to preach Christianity to Christians, but I think that they.
No, you know what? I think you do a really good job.
I mean, frankly, I think that Christians should go to church and re-engage with their faith a lot. I think it's really, really important for the country. More people need to go to church. They need to re-engage with the New Testament, and I'm not a big fan of these. So my business partner Jeremy Boring, who's a lay pastor, he's very fond of saying that he doesn't really believe in sort of the hippie Jesus that seems to be popular these days. Yeah, or like he's coming to basically give you an emotional massage, Jesus. Like that's not actually what he's doing. I mean, there's a lot of, even for a Jew, there's a lot of Old Testament resonances, obviously, in the New Testament, and much of what Jesus is saying, where he's chiding people for not taking care of the poor, for not taking care of the widows. That there's nothing really different than anything Jeremiah would have said, for example.
Okay, we're getting closer.
Okay.
Just let Ben Shapiro keep talking through it.
Yeah. He's like,
he just said that
Jesus is the same thing as the Old Testament.
Was saying the same thing that the Old Testament prophets. Yeah. Yes, Ben. I love it. Yes. Yeah. That's our argument. He fulfills the law and the prophets. He is the fulfillment of all these things.
But there were so many faux messianic figures at the time. Why would they choose this one?
Yeah, let's see if he goes there. I'm excited to bring to you guys our first ever Bless God Summit happening March 27, 28, 29 in Southern California. The Beat's very own Alan Parr and Jen Parr, my guy John McCrae from the What Do You Mean YouTube channel, Preston Perry, Dr. Sean McDowell, Live Actions, Lila Rose, Trizzle Fitness, my pastor Jeff and his wife Erin Moores, as well as live performances from America's Got Talent winner Dustin Savella, Ryan Horton leading worship, Dirt Poor Robbins, and a special concert from John Keith and Miles Minnick. And listen, the goal of this conference is so that we can be the solution to all this craziness as we're coming out of a very tumultuous 2024. I don't know who's going to win this election, but I know there's going to be a lot of upset people come 2025. Now, this is our first conference that we're doing, but this is not our first live event. About a year ago, we did a 3-hour event where we brought in some of the same speakers, and here's some of the feedback from the people that attended that event.
One of the things that stood out to me was how you need to be secure in the Word of God and how reliable it is.
Making sure that God is in my personal ambition.
The reason this is important is because the church has to gather. If you're somebody who is on the edge or on the fence of wondering if you should jump in or not, jump in.
The health of my body is connected to my spiritual health, and that I need to take care of it.
Be prepared to bring your notebook and be prepared to be reminded that You are made for more.
I'm excited to announce that we really want to get as many of you there as we can. So we developed a couple of things. One, we now have a full scholarship opportunity for those of you guys that are like, Ruslan, I want to be there, man, but the way my bank account is set up right now, I just can't cut it, bro. Okay, great. We have a scholarship available where you can fill out a scholarship, and we have opportunities for those of y'all that got it and got the funds and you want to sponsor someone. We have opportunities to sponsor someone, and right inside of the ticket sales section, and an opportunity to buy a pay it forward ticket, as well as group discounts. If you want to bring a bunch of your friends, or if you're a pastor and you want to bring your whole staff, those are available as well. And there's now even payment plans. So you could put a little bit down now, and I think you'll take it out every month or so. But there is some bad news. If you're watching this right now, that means you already missed the very first price jump. The prices were super cheap, and when we initially launched this, now they went up. They're going to go up again in a few weeks. So go to blessgodsummit.com now to get your tickets, to apply for a scholarship, to sponsor someone going that needs to be there. And I can't wait to see you guys, hang out with you guys in person, March 27th, 28th, 29th, here in beautiful North County, San Diego, Carlsbad, California.
And that's harsh stuff. I mean, that's not easy stuff. And when it comes to debate and sort of the tack that you take, I would say it's strategic. There are times, again, when the person who I'm talking to is open to a conversation. It's very.
You saw that? Did you catch it? You didn't catch it? Oh, that's a brilliant sidestep by Ben Shapiro. He acknowledges the point about Jesus. He says, Jeremiah, and then he completely sidesteps it and goes into the conversation about back to debate. He doesn't really seem to want to engage George on Jesus. George brings it, and to be fair to George and Ben, the point of the conversation wasn't really about Jesus. He just used Jesus as an example for his framework on how he engages with people he disagrees with.
Yeah.
So Ben acknowledges Jesus, but then he sidesteps any further discussion about Jesus being the example.
Kind back and forth. I have a lot of these sorts of debates, right? There's one that I had recently with, say, Alex O'Connor, who is a philosophy PhD from Oxford about God. And that was a great back and forth. It wasn't there like, I'm there to destroy you or anything like that. Or even the debate that I did with Destiny with Lex Friedman. I mean, that one was pretty, I would say, polite. And then there are times
both of those were really great conversations. Alex O'Connor's free will doesn't exist was kind of crazy, him kind of cornering him in that position. Destiny, I think, was shocked in terms of where Ben landed with God. That was a great conversation as well. So he's had some really good moments in terms of his conversations specifically with atheist and or agnostic people. And I think he does a great job in those conversations. But we want to hear more about Jesus. Oh yeah.
Where you are, debating somebody and you're on a stage, and the goal is not to convince the person on the stage. The goal is to convince the audience. And so exposing a bad view or a pernicious view in a colorful way might be useful in that endeavor. So you sort of have to always know who your audience is and who you're talking to and what the goal of the conversation is. By the way, I think this is true for virtually all human conversation. I think people waste an enormous amount of time having conversations that honestly they shouldn't bother having, particularly online. Like they do that on X or they do that on Facebook, and it's like, is that time that you're going to want back on your deathbed? Or you're going to look back and really think that was time well spent? So
That's a good point.
It's a great point.
Did he just pivot this into like an anti-social media bit?
Man, what Trump say? Bob and weave.
Yeah,
weave.
he's just weaving a lot.
Gotta weave along.
Well, that's true of debate also. Like doing things with purpose is kind of, I think, the theme of my life very often. And whether it's with kids, with my wife, or whether it's with my business, or whether it's with debate. And so you really have to think through beforehand how it's going to go. And as you say, I think that losing your way emotionally, particularly the easiest thing to do is have your ego triggered. That's the easiest thing.
Yeah, and ego's the death of man, though.
100%. No, that's the problem. And so I would say, if I look back at my history of confrontation, the times where I feel bad about how I performed, all of those would be, and they're pretty rare, but the big ones are times where my ego got tripped and I just got irritable and annoyed, and then you do something that in the moment feels good but is actually counterproductive.
Yeah. How do you deal with those moments, and does it stick with you? Does it hurt you?
Oh my gosh, years later.
Yeah.
Years later, yeah. I mean, I look back and I'm like, God, I wish I could have that one back.
Listen, I think conversations, especially even within different streams of Christianity, are helpful. I think conversations with Jewish people, and some of you guys may disagree, but I do believe that Jewish people are closer in terms of what Christians believe than other faith traditions. I think are helpful because there's a wide spectrum within the Jewish world, like the different positions they hold to. And I think Ben is super smart, but I think if he were to really have a conversation with someone on like the validity of the resurrection, Jesus being God, so on and so forth, I don't know if he wins that conversation. Like a William Lane Craig and he's had William Lane Craig on, but maybe William Lane Craig is a bad example. Maybe a Jimmy Akin, maybe someone in that realm. I would love to see him have more conversations like that. And he has. He had John MacArthur on. He's had a few conversations like that, but I think more conversations like that. I think the audience would love to see it because I think there's a lot of people that would love to see Ben become a Christian.
Yeah, I think he's got too much invested.
Yeah, I mean, it's your
It's like-
ethnic identity.
I think that would be similar to saying if you can convince Ben Shapiro to be a Democrat.
Yeah. Later on in the conversation, to talk about like Candace Owens and all that stuff, you guys should really go check out the full conversation. So if you want to see the whole podcast, I recommend you go watch it. We'll have that over here for you. And if you want to see the time I was on George Danko podcast, got a little tense too, you can check that out over here. All right. I'll see you over there. Peace.